Hi, I'm Todd Clatt, USA Archery Level 3 coach. This is
Danny Pincus, USA Level 4 archery coach.
And we're here today to show you a little bit about how to score an archery target and a little bit about the indoor setup for an archery range. Danny?
Okay, in 4-H, we have 3 different divisions. We have our cloverleafs, our juniors, and our seniors. Our juniors and our seniors will shoot a target format such as this. What they're shooting is a 40 centimeter target. They can either shoot a 3-spot or a single spot 10 ring target. And when they shoot this, we're shooting a ABCD format. And what that means is this is target A, this is target B, this is target C, this is target D. When we blow our whistles and run our whistle commands, we'll first call up AB. AB will come up, the person standing on this side will shoot the A target. The B person stands on this side and shoots this target. Then we'll re-blow the whistles again, bring up our next shooting line. C will shoot on this side on this target, and D shoots on this side on this target. Then when we come back to the line the next time, we'll call CD first. After we all go down and score together and go back, and when we come to our next course of fire, CD will shoot first, staying on their same target on the same spot on the bell. This is the way we do our juniors and seniors. As far as our cloverleafs go, our cloverleaf recurve and compound will shoot this format. And they run the same whistle commands, they'll be shooting at the same time. Your A shooters will shoot here, your B shooters shoot here. There go back, the next shooters will come up. C will shoot on the same target that A did, and D will shoot on the same target that B did. Our novice shooters, however, they shoot on the big 122 target. And they're shooting the same format, but they all shoot that one target right in the middle. And A is stand on this side, B is stand on this side, and they're shooting that single target. Then when the next line comes up, it'll be C and D, and they're shooting at that same target right in the middle.
Now that Danny has talked a little bit about the format of shooting, let's talk a little bit about scoring the actual target. This will be a cloverleaf target. It's a little bigger so you can see the scoring rings. In indoor archery, it's a little different than outdoor archery. In indoor archery, you have an X ring that actually counts as an 11. The outdoor archery, which we'll talk about later, the X ring counts just as an X. In indoor archery, for our 4-H purposes, we score the rings as such. The innermost ring is an 11, then a 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And any arrow that does not come in contact with the scoring rings is scored as a miss and marked as an M on the scorecard. So look at some arrows here that are already in the target. In this case, you would have the arrows assigned the values of. The centermost arrow here is lying in the 11. The arrow here is lying in the outer edge of the 9 ring, the yellow ring, and this area here is lying in the 8 ring in the red. This again would be your cloverleaf target. Over here, we have the senior target or the junior target, whichever one they may choose. In the senior division or junior division, if they choose to shoot a 3-spot target, there must be 1 arrow in each one of the targets. The arrows actually would be assigned the values of this target in the center would be an 11. This target, the arrow would be a 9, and in this target, the arrow would be a 10. And they would be recorded as that on your scorecard.
All right, so them arrows that Todd was just talking about, they're really easy to score. What about the arrows that are line cutters? So first thing we got to remember is we need to mark our arrow shafts. As you can see, we have these arrows shot in this target. We have these arrows shot in this target. What happens if there's 2 arrows in this target and this third arrow, this person shoots in this target? We don't know whose arrows are whose. And we get that a lot with the cloverleafs, and especially in the novice division. A lot of them are shooting club arrows, so all the arrows are the same. We have to mark the arrow shaft somehow and not just write their initials on the fletching, because fletchings can fall off. So we need to put some kind of marking on the shaft to say this is Billy's arrow. All right, the other thing that we were getting into was the arrows that are what we call line cutters. They're really hard to describe. So as long as the arrow is cutting the line, you get the next higher score. So this arrow is halfway between the 8 ring and the 9 ring. on this one, and it's a 9 because it's cut. Any of them that cut the line, but then we get these other ones like this arrow right here that's on the 8 may be a 9. So if I was to come back here and I look at this arrow, I would call that arrow an 8. But when you come up and you redraw the line, because papers can get pulled and wiggled, when we redraw the line, where was the arrow sitting if the target was sitting on there like it was supposed to be? So we're going to bring the camera up close so you can see what we're talking about. So first thing we're going to do is look down the arrow shaft, and it kind of looks like that arrow is a 8. But if we come over here to the side and we redraw this line, look really close and tight in here, that line is running through the center of that, or through that shaft, and it has cut that arrow. Therefore, that arrow value is a 9. Also, one other thing that we need to talk about, because when we get to this point, we don't need to touch the target faces. Because if you come over here and lean and prop and pull and tug on this paper, see how we're moving the arrows? So whenever you're pushing on this, the arrows are moving. We don't touch a target bale. We don't touch an arrow. When we're calling arrows, we point at the nock. We don't come up here and do this and change values of arrows.
Now that Danny's shown you how to mark the questionable arrows and assign them a value, let's talk about how to actually approach the target and remove the arrows from the target. After the 3 whistle blast command and you travel down to the target, all archers should stop at a target line in front of the target. After stopping at the line, the scorer will ask them to step forward and assign a value to each of the arrows. Remember, never touch the target face, never touch the target bell, and never touch any of your target arrows or remove them from the target. Even though one of your arrows may be up here in either of the scoring rings, never touch the target face, target butt, or any arrow before all arrows have been scored in the target. Not just your arrows, not just my arrows, but everyone who shot on the target bell should have their arrows scored before anyone removes an arrow from the target. So I'm called forward, I step up and I assign my arrows from the highest to the lowest value. This one I scored as an 11, I scored this one as a 9, and I scored this one as a 9. Now before removing these, and after all the arrows have been scored, I'm called back up and I should mark the holes in the target where the arrow lays. It's easier to do this while your arrows are still in the target, because after removing all the arrows and then searching for holes, and there's quite a few holes in the target, could get a little confusing. The easiest way is while the arrows are here, simply step up, mark small little lines, showing where the arrows have landed in the target. Perhaps you've had an arrow that's hit the target and bounced back. Here's the importance of marking your arrow holes. Anytime you have an arrow that has hit the target and bounced back out, you'll come with the judge and you will try to find the lowest unmarked hole on the target, and that arrow, where it has landed, that hole actually becomes the value of that bounced out arrow. On this one, I've forgotten to mark a few holes in my target while I was shooting. If we look at this now, I've got an 8, a 7, a 7, a 6, and a miss outside the target here. This unmarked hole is the lowest unmarked hole on my target. And this becomes the value of that arrow, no matter where it struck the target and landed backwards. This is why it's extremely important to mark your arrows before you pull them from the target.
Okay, now that Todd has explained how we're finished coming up with our arrow value and how we're going to write them on our scorecard, I've got an example here. This is how we're going to keep up with scores at indoor. Okay, and we're going to keep a running total of each arrow value, and generally we start with our higher score first, and we run out and we keep 11, 10, 10. That's a 31, and then we keep a running total over here. Then we have 10, 10, 10 is a 30, and that is a 61. Also, since we're talking about writing this down, I have a couple of examples here, or a example here. We need to write where we can read the scorecard so we know what the value is. If we get in here and we look at this number right here, is that a 9? Is that a 0? Or is that a 4? We don't know, so we need to make sure that we're writing numbers where we can read them. Is that an 8? Is that a 5? because some of his 8s look very similar. And then if you miss the target, instead of writing a 0, because it's really hard to tell whether it's a 0 or a 9 or a 6, the zeros are misses, and we're going to mark them as an M. Also, one other thing that we get a lot during outdoor season when we score, we're using the bubble targets, just simply where we bubble in the arrow value. And what we get a lot, and what happens more often than not, is that you get your scorecards out of order. So you go up and you score Sally and Jim and Sue, and by the time you get done writing your 6 arrow values, you're calling a judge because you scored them arrows on somebody's wrong scorecard. So the way to keep from doing that is every time we go to the target, indoor or outdoor, we score A, B, C, and D shooters in that order, and we keep them on the clipboard. A, B, C, and D. If I can get them opened up here. C score and D score, and we don't pull the paper off and rotate the paper and move it through. We always leave it in this order on the scorecard, and we just take the scorecard and bend it over and write the score. And that way, we always keep the right person's score wrote on their scorecard, and we don't run into these mistakes. If there's a mistake on your scorecard, it has to be initialed by a line judge. And at that point, you raise your hand, and whoever is running that line, they will come over and help you. Also, if the 4 of y'all on your target cannot agree with our arrow value, then you raise your hand, call line judge. That is not for the scorer to do. It's not the scorer's responsibility. If the 4 archers cannot agree, as long as the 4 archers agree, you're good. Write your scores down, move on. If you cannot agree, that's what the line judges are there for. The scorers that are assigned for the Cloverleafs and the juniors, they do not make that call. It's not their job. Call range official, the range official will handle it. And all of your mistakes have to be initialed on your scorecards. If you do not have your mistakes initialed, you can lose your chance to win the tournament. I actually had a shooter that tied #1 spot, didn't have a scorecard initialed on one score, and he did not make first because of it.